Aquaba to summertime, everyone. Today I have a special guest for us here on Telling Our Stories. She is such a beautiful person, an excellent author, an amazing dance teacher. I want you guys all to welcome Miss Janelle Harper. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction.
No, thank you for spending time with me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, I have to spend time with a fellow Bronxite.
Word. Now, I always love talking about childhood. That's actually the first thing I touch on with everyone. So, what was your childhood like? Where did you grow up and what were your parents like?
So, I've been thinking about my childhood a lot recently because I am turning the big 40 in August.
Hey, clap to that.
Some of my best memories were growing up in the Bronx. So I grew up in the Wakefield section of the Bronx. So shout out to 225th and Laconia Avenue.
Shout out, shout out.
And so I grew up in this beautiful home with my parents. And I just remember like great memories, especially during the summer. So I had a porch and it was facing across the street. So all the summer basketball tournaments, it's kind of like I had a little private viewing area and I could just see all the tournaments. I just remember our block being alive. There were so many families on our block. So the kids riding their bikes, double dutch, playing in the, open hydrants. And so it was just some beautiful memories made in the Bronx growing up.
All right, in the Bronx, one thing that we are really known for is our bodegas. How
Mhm.
much did you visit them? How often?
So the corner store was like a half block up. And so, once your parents trust you at a certain age, you're able to go by yourself. And so every day you're there at least twice a day. Yeah. So quarter waters, I don't even know if they still sell those, but like quarter waters back when chips were actually 25 cents. And so if mom or dad gave me $5, like I actually could come out with a whole bag of stuff.
For me, one of my favorite things to get from Parkchester, where I grew up, would be when my parents take me to Venice, the local pizza shop. I love Venice. Still to this day, it's really good.
Nice.
So that's probably one of my favorite things. I remember going to Chan's Village sometimes, the the Chinese spot,
Mhm.
and I will always get fried chicken and French fries.
Yes.
So that was like a staple for me. What did
Mhm.
you get?
So I feel like we didn't have a pizza shop close to us, but we definitely had the Chinese shop. And I was definitely one of the kids that had the chicken wings. Again, it was 4 pieces of chicken wings for $1. And you put the ketchup and barbecue sauce in the bag and shake it up. And so I was definitely one of the kids that went in there and got the fried chicken as well.
Yep. Or you can even get the fried rice and put the ketchup and hot sauce all on
Yes,
it.
yes.
Those are good times. Really good times. So can you walk me through what a typical Saturday was like for you?
So on the weekends, my parents believed in keeping us very busy. And so at a young age, my mom and dad found a Mind Builders Creative Arts Center. And it is located in the Bronx off of Gun Hill. And
Mhm.
it's still open to this day. And so you could go there and take music lessons, theater, dance. And so they put me in dance, thinking like, okay, this is just something, to keep her busy. But then every year, I was like, and can I take this additional class and this additional class? So before you know it, I was like there Wednesdays through Saturdays.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I fell in love with dance. I also took like piano and I took it till I was 14, but I just didn't love it or have the passion for it. I was good at it, but I
Mhm.
didn't have the passion for it like I did with dance. So I stuck with dance.
For me, I love piano.
That's what
The
I
piano is
played.
actually between that and then the horns will probably be my two
Mm,
favorite types of instruments. I
okay.
love it because piano has a certain sound to it where it can be
Mhm.
somber but happy. And I don't know, I just love the sound of it. But let's talk about dance. What type of dance did you do?
I wanted to take everything. So I was trained in ballet and jazz and modern and West African, which is actually my favorite because that was the only class where you had live drummers and instruments. And so having that connection with the drummers and feeding off of each other's energy. And so I loved, West African classes like doing Sunu and Kuku and Manjani. Like I just Loved it. So that was always my favorite, but I was trained in all styles. I always tell my students like they're lucky now to have like people who teach them like hip hop in studios,
Hmm.
because growing up that just wasn't a thing. Like hip hop was just starting to get, more popular, and you learn that like in the
Along
streets
the
or from the
way.
music videos. So like hip hop wasn't a genre, a dance you studied in school. Like you had to learn it in the streets like everybody else.
But it's good that you're well versed in different types of music. And that is true with the West African concept. It does feel very lively.
Mhm.
Like for me, even hearing the drums, even
Mm.
when we're practicing that in school in Ghana, it just feels very lively. You may be sad that day, and then your energy
Mhm.
turns around when you hear that because it's like
Absolutely.
super upbeat. So I love that. Is that what inspired you to become a dance teacher?
So, what inspired me? It's interesting. I always had dance teachers, and I even had a dance teacher in high school,
Hmm?
but somehow I didn't make the connection like this could be a career. And then finally, when I went to college, I started with economics, and I quickly found out that's not what I want to do. And so, sophomore year, I decided without speaking to my parents, I was switching to a dance major. And at first, they were like, we didn't send you to college for this. What do you mean? But eventually they were like, okay, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. And I come from a family of educators. So principals, coaches, teachers. So to me, it just made sense that I merged both loves of kids, because I loved working with kids. I was a camp counselor for many years,
Hmm.
dance and teaching. So it was like the best of all worlds. And I was lucky to come from a household that could afford the arts, but I know that it is expensive. And I know my parents did a lot of working overtime and multiple jobs so they can get
Mm.
the costumes and pay for the classes. And I thought, like, I have this gift and I could share it for free, in the public schools, and the kids can have me and have this experience because they may not be able to afford it otherwise.
Yo, that's fire. Give a shout out to your
Oh.
parents and to you. Cause you took that mindset knowing that it was expensive and you
Mhm.
wanted to give an opportunity for kids that love it, that were like you when you were younger. So shout out to you for that.
Aw.
Now, do you see any difference between the generation of kids when you were growing up to now since you're a teacher?
I feel like every generation is different, and I feel like the previous generation always says this generation's different. But I embrace those differences, and and just hope like each generation gets better than the next. And so I try not to like harp on those differences, because I know how it felt when I was a kid and adults would say, "Oh, this generation," and then you like miss the connection between
Hmm.
the generations. And so I usually am not the adult that will like say that, and like just try to see, okay, what's going on with this generation. And they honestly, like, they keep you young. They're honest, whether it hurts your feelings or not, but you're like, you get to like, okay, that's how you feel. That's how it's always interesting to me to see how um children and the youth view the world. And then it gives you a new perspective on things as well.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned. Children my age, they are very honest. Honest to the
Mhm,
point where if
mhm.
you start crying, they'll be like, I'm sorry, but you got to know the truth.
As a
The truth
teacher,
hurts.
you have to have thick skin as a teacher, because you're going to get the truth whether you, you like it or not.
Yeah, that's one thing about a generation I've learned. Very fast, too. Very fast.
Hmm.
So, with dancing, you also said that that's a way to tell a story.
Hmm.
But you also found another way to tell a story through you writing. What was that like?
So there's so many connections between dancing and writing. So like even with dance, there has to be like a clear beginning, middle, and end when you choreograph a dance, right? And so does a book, right? You read it, it has a beginning, middle, and end. And dance, sometimes there's mood to the dance. You read a book, you experience different moods as well. So there's so much correlation between the two. So for me, it was just like a seamless transition in many ways. And I tend to write more lyrically. And I know that's because of dance. Like as soon as I'm writing something, I'm like, how does this sound? Like, what's the flow of this? What's the rhythm of this? Which
Hmm.
is why my block looks like it's very lyrical, and you can like hear the flow of it.
Yes, that's one thing I've noticed, and I love it. And also, I found that when I found out, I just made the connection that also it represents the Bronx in a way, because
Hmm.
the Bronx is the birthplace of hip hop.
Hmm.
So with the lyricism and that and all the rhyming and stuff, that's how you know that it's a beautiful ode to the Bronx. So I Shout out to you for that. That's actually one of my favorite children's books. I love it. Between the illustration and then how you were able to craft a beautiful ode to the Bronx, basically in capturing what it's like to live in the Bronx and to be a Bronxite and experience it for what it is. Shout out to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you related to it. And I just wanted children to feel seen. So being a teacher, and I was always passionate about like teaching in the Bronx. So I taught in the Bronx because that was my way of giving back to my community as well. And it was important for the students to see me. And I would always talk to them about my experiences because kids can't dream of things they don't know are possible. And so like when they talk to me, oh, you went to college. How many times you went to college? How many degrees you have, miss? I'm like, I have 3. You have 3 college degrees. You lived in London. And so once you start to talk to them and share your experiences, then their world expands and then they dream bigger things for themselves. And so for me, it's always important for kids to see themselves, especially in books, because we're still fighting for diversity in publishing and for marginalized voices to see themselves. And so for me, I wanted to write this book because for so often, like when I talk about the Bronx or someone says stuff about the Bronx, like their ideas of the Bronx are so limited, unfortunately, to what they see in the media or to like the 70s when the Bronx was burning. And I'm like, that was just one chapter of our history. There's so many other chapters and so many beautiful things happening in the Bronx. So this was like my love letter to the Bronx and highlighting those things.
Yes, and that brings me to my fun fact session.
Oh, okay.
What is one fun fact you want to tell about the Bronx that you feel like everyone should know?
One fun fact. Okay. Something that a lot of people don't know is that Central Park is not the largest park in New York City. It's actually Pelham Bay Park, which is in the Boogie Down Bronx. And the second largest is Van Cortlandt, which is also in the Bronx. So Central Park is the 3rd largest park. So shout out to the BX.
Yeah, shout out to the BX for that. And then also, I want to know 2 fun facts about you that very few people know.
I am a horror movie fanatic. I love horror movies. My mom is a scary cat. She will tell you that. And so my father's a horror movie fanatic. He was. And so she would not watch it with him. And so he would have me and my brother, as long as we didn't have nightmares, which I guess we didn't because we would just sit there and watch, we're watching Halloween, we're watching Nightmare on Elm Street, all those things. And so I love horror movies until this day. And then also something else, even though people tell me this is not a real animal, my favorite animal is a unicorn.
Why?
I just think they're magical and special. Like when you think about a unicorn, you can't like be sad. Like you just get joy thinking about a unicorn. So I always say that's my favorite animal.
Could you guess what my favorite animal is?
For some reason, I'm getting like tiger vibes. I don't know.
Now, tigers are nice. This might shock you, but one of my favorite animals of all time is a fox.
Really?
I love foxes. They're very pretty.
They are.
And I think one of my favorite breeds has to be the Arctic fox because it's just white and it has this cream-colored fur and it looks really cute. I love it.
I think you're the first person I've met that said a fox is different, but I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Now, for you mentioned about the West African dances, and I want to circle back to that. Do you see yourself mentoring any kids in that aspect, both here and in Ghana, if you ever go over there?
So I hope to travel back to Africa. So I visited East Africa. So I went to Uganda, a part of an NYU trip I did. And so I was over there for 3 weeks. And so it was like an exchange program where we taught them some of our dances. They taught us their dances. And so I definitely want to go back. Ghana is one of the countries I want to visit because when I did live in London, people would always stop me and ask, like, was I either from Ghana or Nigeria? And I was like, oh, no, I'm from and they're like, you got to check your lineage, like, because I'm telling you, they're like, you look like one of us. And I was like, they were like, no, go back and check. And so that's definitely one of the countries I do want to visit.
Yes, I know that there's a lot of Ghanaians and Nigerians in London.
Like, huge population.
I have a friend in Ghana, and then she's Ghanaian, but she came from London. She's like, there's a lot of them, believe me. It's like, especially in certain pockets.
Yeah.
There are more Ghanaians than you see anyone else.
It's a lot, but it's beautiful to have that diversity there too.
Yes.
So when I lived in London, I wasn't really homesick because it felt like a New York overseas because it was so diverse. So it was nice to have that.
Yes, New York is known for its diversity, but you should definitely come to Ghana. I look forward to seeing you there.
Listen, when I do, I'm definitely going to give you a call.
All right.
Show me around.
I'll show you around. I'll do my best to show you around. Now, for my block looks like, what inspired this illustration? Because that's actually one of my favorite parts of the book, the illustration.
So Frank Morrison is like a genius. So just a little behind the scenes on how like publishing works. Because so many people are like, you pick the illustrator. I'm like, sort of, but not really. And so when you write the story, you kind of come up with a list of illustrators, like your dream illustrators, and then the publishers try their best to, get the people that you want. And so for me, like Frank was at the top because I've seen his previous work and I just love how he captures the essence of the city and also just Black and brown people. He does an amazing job of that. And so he was like number one, but he's like creme de la creme and he's booked and busy. But I was like, I'm going to always shoot my shot. I'm a New Yorker. Like, I'm going to shoot my shot.
That's what we're
And
known for.
so luckily, funny enough, he told me a story. He was like, I was retired, right? When I got your manuscript. And I was like, you was? He was like, yeah, I did over 50 children's books. I just needed. Yeah. So in his mind, he was like, I'm done. But when he read the story, he was like, all right, I've never illustrated a story about the Bronx. And he's a graffiti artist. So once he saw the hip hop aspect, he was like, oh yeah, let me come out of retirement real quick. Let me do this. So I was super excited about that. And so he beautifully encaptured it. Like he just took it to a whole nother level with the illustration. So I'm happy. I love it.
And it goes super well with the book.
Mm-hmm.
You guys should definitely get the book. Miss Janelle, can you tell them where they can get the book from?
Anywhere books are sold. So I always say try to support your local independent booksellers, but Barnes & Noble, Amazon, anywhere books are sold, you can get the book.
Yes. Please buy a copy of this. It's a really beautiful book. I love the illustration. I love how she was able to craft the story. I even love this little girl like in every single page because it represents us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where can they follow you?
They can follow me on Instagram at BX Storyteller.
All right, guys, please follow her. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated it. It's really fun, and I hope to see you in Ghana so we can do a part 2.
Yes.
Because that would be like super dope. But see you.
Thank you so much. This is one I love talking to people from the Bronx. And
me too.
Congratulations on everything that you're doing. I love watching you on Instagram. I'm like, what's she up to? Who she's interviewing? So you were definitely representing for the Bronx and making us super proud. So thank you.
Thank you so much for this episode. And until next time on Summertime.